For the first time in history, migrant workers around the world were given a voice at the United Nations by Hong Kong-based Indonesian domestic helper Eni Lestari. Eni addressed the UN General Assembly during its summit on refugees and migrants held Monday, September 19 in New York City. In her 3-minute speech, Eni spoke about the problems faced by migrant workers around the world.
After years of being voiceless and invisible, we, the migrants, are finally welcome here to speak for ourselves. We are the people who have been denied the future, the rights, and the dream we used to imagine.
Eni has worked in Hong Kong since 1999. Her decision to fight for migrants' rights began when she experienced abuse at the hands of a former employer.
The reason why I came into the migrant movement activist at this point is because when I came here, I suffered all this process being a migrant, from being cheated by the employment agency. They took away my passport, took away my salary, and I had my employer who was not very kind and underpaid, unpaid, no holiday, and they confined me in the house, doesn't allow me to even talk to other people.
After 7 months of backbreaking work, Eni ran away and sought help at the Mission for Migrant Workers.
But that time it's not very easy to get help because you don't find any information in Indonesian language or other languages easily accessible. The only thing that is available is Chinese or English, and many of us don't actually read English or Chinese. So, and because of our document being kept by the agency, almost no access to any information. So we were actually blind inside the employer house and controlled also.
During her stay at the mission shelter, Bethune House Migrant Women's Refuge, she realized that there were other domestic helpers in Hong Kong who suffered the same or even worse fate.
It took me a while just to understand that my problem is not only my problem, because in the shelter that I stay in, which is the Bethune House shelter, I found different nationality from the Philippines, Indonesia, the Nepali, Sri Lankan, even Indian that time. So I realized the problem that I had was actually everyone problem, all nationality. As long as you are domestic worker here, you will always be in this kind of situation. Some even worse because they were raped, physically abused, and some even don't get paid for a year even.
From being a shelter resident, she became one of the most active migrant leaders in Hong Kong, eventually becoming chairperson of the International Migrants Alliance. Although she does not expect that her short speech would immediately ease the problems of migrants worldwide, Eni is confident that the summit would lead to a much-needed process that will address their plight.
The UN summit is the beginning of international process. The UN is initiating now an international agreement for all countries for them to commit and address the crisis of migrants and refugees. So the output of the summit is an agreement, as a basic agreement. They call it outcome documents, which will be a process for the next 2 years for them to become formal blueprint agreement of all countries.